say Happy Easter, actually, because today is Easter again. In If you are of the Orthodox or Coptic Christians, today is actually the celebration of Easter, because they base their Easter calendar or their calendar holidays on the Julian calendar, which was the calendar that was used before the Gregorian calendar, which is the calendar we use. So, also at this time, and I was talking about earlier how April is a very holy week. Also at this time in Egypt, and possibly other places in the Middle East, but especially in Egypt, they're celebrating spring now, the vernal equinox, with a holiday called Sham el Nassim, which means, and this is, I love this, it means inhaling the breeze. Isn't that fabulous? Inhaling the breeze. I want a holiday that's about inhaling the breeze. Well, that should be every day. So it's very similar to Easter and other spring holidays, in that it's about new lives, new beginnings. The symbol of the egg is very prominent in Sham el Nassim. And so it celebrates a very similar thing symbolically as Easter. And of course, the word Easter comes from a pagan goddess, the pagan goddess of fertility, and her name was Ostara or Iostra, which is where the word Easter comes from. So because of this, because it's Easter actually again, or still, if you are Eastern Orthodox, I'm just going to show the video of last week's talk. Okay? No, just kidding. The other thing I want to talk about today is Wednesday. A lot of special holidays on Wednesday. Passover started on Wednesday this year. Well, this Wednesday is Earth Day. Earth Day is something that started in around 1970, I believe, was the first Earth Day. The founder of Earth Day was a gentleman named Gaylord Nelson. He was a U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, and he was motivated by this oil spill that happened around, I guess it was in 1970 or probably 1969. The big oil spill that was up in Santa Barbara, California, which I don't particularly remember it, but I have read that it was quite devastating at the time. But he was devastated by this devastation, and it motivated him, and he brought along a friend who was also conservation minded, who happened to be a Republican congressman named Pete McCloskey, who served as his co-chair, and they got together and decided to create this Earth Day. What they wanted to do is infuse the energy of the anti-war movement that was going on around that time. Remember, 1969, 1970, and infuse that energy into what was becoming the emerging public consciousness of our Earth, of the environment, of the air and the water pollution that was going on. If you were alive at that time, it was pollution was really, really intense everywhere. I didn't live in Los Angeles at the time, but I know that it was pretty intense at that time, and people wanted to bring the environmental concerns onto the public stage. And they thought that this would help because this was something that was important to both of them. So they put together what they called a national teach-in on the environment. So on April 22nd, 1970, 20 million Americans, that was at that time 10% of the population, rallied to the streets, to the parks, to the auditoriums, and they protested. They said, hey, we want the environment to be considered. We need things cleaned up. And Republicans and Democrats got together. Poor and rich people got together. The urbanites and the people in the rural areas, the farmers, et cetera, they got together. Business and labor leaders, all these people who were conservation minded got together on this day. 20 million people. to say, hey, we need to pay attention to this now. After the first Earth Day, the Environmental Protection Agency was put together, and I believe that was put together by President Nixon at the time. The passage of the Clean Air Act happened right after that. 2 years later, the Clean Water Act was put into the law, and then a year after that, the Endangered Species Act was put into the law. And I bring this up now not just because it's Earth Day on Wednesday, but during this pandemic, during this having to stay at home pretty much, or covering our face when we do go out. There's been a slight, some people think it's significant, but in scientific terms, it's more of a slight environmental improvement. But of course, there's less cars out there, and that cleans the air. They say the Venice canals the water's actually clean, and that's more because the sediment has been allowed to go down to the bottom of the canals because there's not boats running around stirring everything up. People are seeing more and more of animals, especially if you live up near the mountain areas. I presume since they're seeing less humans walking around, they feel a little more bold. The environment is taking back itself. And so that reminded me about how we can take this time to not only clean the environment out there or clean the environment within, because I know a lot of people are cleaning their own houses. For those who might have a housekeeper, they're doing it themselves. I know a lot of my friends are painting walls, something I need to do this week myself. They're cleaning out their closets. I have a friend in New York who daily comes to Facebook and says, look what I found. One day it was an old headshot of mine. And people are cleaning things out. And now we're getting really used to washing our hands. But as we're in there, inside, or mostly inside, washing our hands, are we also washing our minds? We're the co-creators of our lives. We're the authors, the sculptors, you've heard all this before, the choreographers. We are the CEO of the experiences that are going on in our lives, and especially the perspective, the reaction to the experiences that are going on around us. And we get to daily choose to either hold on to the sucky thoughts and beliefs that get in our way and bring experiences that aren't fun, or our relation to the experiences that aren't so great, or we can change those sucky patterns to constructive and inspired and loving patterns in our mind. Loving ones. And having that be in our experience, no matter what's going on in the world. And then we get to decide, of course, if we want to repeat those patterns or remove or improve those patterns in our life, okay? That's what this philosophy is about. That's what New Thought philosophies are about. That's what psychology, when you go to your therapist, that's what they're talking about. Changing those thought patterns and thus your beliefs, so that what's going around you, there's a different perspective. And of course, through the law of cause and effect, there's a different experience. When we transform ourselves, we transform the world. I was reading something from Deepak Chopra, Dr. Chopra, and he was saying that current global situation challenges us to find ways to restore balance, calm, harmony, and stability of the outside from the inside. So to that, I want to talk to you a little bit about an article that I read. So I read this article in Elle Decor. Now I know most of you subscribe to Elle Decor, And you probably might have seen this article. It was written by Monique Valeris and Kelsey Kloss. And they wrote this article called 15 Designer Tricks for Brightening Up a Dark Room, No Major Renovations Necessary. And I read this article and I thought, wow, this is really cool. This is interesting. This is a cool way, and I wanted to read that. And let me read something that they wrote. They said, just because a room lacks an abundance of natural light doesn't mean you have to settle for living in a dark space around the clock. Believe it or not, this is a fairly common dilemma that top interior designers solve all the time. While a major renovation can certainly correct the issue, thankfully it's not the only option you have. A well-lit space isn't just more inviting, it can also improve your overall well-being. So when you change the light in your room, of course you change the overall well-being. When you walk into a well-lit room, your attitude, your mood kind of brightens up. One of the first things, of course, we do in the morning is come into the living room and open the curtains. The whole living room brightens up, and we start moving through our day. Well, I, inspired by that article, have come up with I call it the 5 Rev J tricks for brightening up a dark attitude. And this will also help brighten up a dark room. If you happen to have a dark room, you can use these ideas to do that as well. So, give me credit if you take these to heart and your room changes and brightens up. So, Decorator Rev J, decorating your room and your inner room. So, number 1, surround yourself with great smells, good music, nutritious but yummy foods. Now, this wasn't so much in their article, but something that was inspired to me by the article. And it's something that I do, and it's something that uplifts my mood. And I know I have many friends. I can think of a particular friend in Palm Springs, and she and her husband use aromatherapy in their homes, which we thank again them for when we were in Palm Springs a few weeks ago. Actually, it was the week before you weren't supposed to leave your house that we were in Palm Springs, and they were lovely to house us for that those few days. Uses aromatherapy in their house. Using aromatherapy, cleaning the house with great music. Here, I want to show you an example of doing that. Give me 1 second. I want to show you an example of how you can do that. Here, 1 second. Here's a great example of cleaning your house with joy and using that to brighten up a dark attitude. See, that's all you need to do. Get that vacuum cleaner, put on some great music, and dance the day away. And as far as yummy foods go, I know it's been a great time to dip into the yummy foods that may not be as nutritious, but it's also a good time and I know I've seen people on Facebook and everything dig into recipes that are fun to make and take some of the time of your day to bring nutritious, yummy foods. It will brighten up a dark attitude. Number 2, have a high gloss ceiling. This is one of their ideas. Have a high gloss ceiling and accents of metallics and mirrors. They say double amount of sunlight by allowing it to bounce off reflective surfaces that are across from it. in your accents or in your furniture. Shimmery gold or silver accessories have a way of reflecting light and making a design scheme feel more luxurious. And who doesn't want a luxurious life? Life should be luxurious, whatever that means to you. That doesn't always mean the same thing to each person. So, what that brought up to me is reflections. What are we reflecting in our lives? And what are we using to reflect those ideas in our lives? Do we use the daily affirmation, either the ones I wrote or a combination of the ones I wrote or ones you write or ones that are on your calendar? I've shown you the Louise Hay daily calendar that I have, and I use that as along with the affirmation that I write every day. And I also use as another one of my spiritual practices that show a reflection, that makes a reflection onto my life, is my vision board. And I have a lot of great things on my vision board that I remind myself of. Growth, support and more resources, and knowing that the New Thought Spiritual Center is beyond exception. I have a great thing I cut out saying, take a mental picture. It'll last longer. Because when you take a mental picture and you bring it into your beliefs, what happens? It comes out into your experiences. There's no choice. The law makes it happen. And all kinds of other things that are on my vision board and that I add to my vision board. All those things are reflections of you. And those reflections come out into your room, from your inner room to your outer room. They bounce off that reflection from your imagination. I'm pointing to my gut. You can't see that because I'm sitting down. From your imagination, from your heart, of course, from the inspiration that comes through all that, from the logic in your brain, through this, what I call the divine matrix. And from that communion that we have when we meditate, when we vision, when we visualize, when we work on our vision board. Number 3, be sure to trim the trees, they say. Have translucent shades, good lighting, and clean windows. They wrote, if light can't reach your window, it certainly won't brighten your room. Make sure any bushes or trees cushioning your windows are trimmed regularly, and avoid planting trees on the southern side of your home. Something to write down in case you realize you look out the window right now and you can see the trees covering too much. Trees above the window is one thing, but trees right in front of stop the light. Well, what of our trees? What do we have covering us? It's our self-talk. This is what it reminded me of. I need to trim my self-talk. Do you? Do you need to trim some of that stuff in your self-talk that tells you, I don't have the time, I'm stuck in? Do you have so much self-talk of loneliness that you don't even open yourself up to opening the door, opening the window, and yelling across the alley as they would in urban settings, and say, hey, what's going on? How you doing? You can go out in the street and walk around with your covering. You can talk to people 6 feet in distance. Yeah, maybe we can't go to clubs. We can't go to restaurants right now. But there's really no reason to be lonely. I'm not saying that you may not feel alone, but there's no reason to feel lonely. And there's many reasons for that. 1, because the divine is always with you. 2, because you're here right now with a community. You are communing with a community. You can have Zoom parties. All kinds of things are going on. You see it. You see it. If you're on any sort of social media or even watch the news, you will see that people are doing that. They're having Zoom parties. They're having lunch by having lunch in their home and the other person having lunch in their home. But the FaceTime or whatever the Skype is on, and they're communing. But when you are alone, what is going on in your head? We need to all trim some of that self-talk that's bringing lack and limitation and this feeling of being alone. And to be in the sunshine of life. There's a song. They also talked about opt for translucent shades that allow sunshine to spread throughout the room. Open the shades of your heart and your mind. It's a great time, especially for those of us who have a lot of free time, so to speak. Those of us who aren't working at home. And I'm knowing whatever needs to appear for you at the perfect time will appear for you as far as income. For those of you who are not employed at this time because of this. But this is a great time to open our hearts and open our minds and bringing the sunshine of the divine in. Indirect lighting, they say, aimed upward can make up for lack of light on the ceiling as daylight dwindles. I'm just talking about that right now. Open up our hearts and our minds to the divine that is within, to the cosmic energy that is out there waiting for us to just grab hold of it. I know that sounds so spiritual and kind of woo-woo and stuff, but it's not. It's there. I'm not really a woo-woo person. When I was first in this, excuse me, when I was first in this, I was into the whole logic of this, the whole mind, the mental science. But when I got into the heart part of this science that I ignored at first 30-something years ago, boy, did I expand. And you see that in people like Quincy. Her heart opens, and thus her mind opens, and inspiration comes in and through. Not only when she performs and sings and writes, but when she just speaks, her energy is there. That energy doesn't just come from nowhere. It comes from intentionally being conscious and looking upward, so to speak, and seeking and living the consciousness of the highest ideals. They also said the less dirt and dust and splatters on your windows, the more sunshine can peek into your room. So it's time, like I said, with the self-talk, is to clean up our thoughts as well as the environment around us. When we clean up our perspective on things, we clean up that proverbial window of opportunities, that window of experience. Number 4, light wood flooring and colorful area rugs. They say when a space is in need of additional light, it's best to choose light wood flooring to brighten up the room. Well, our inner space needs light. So are we connecting to what we're sitting on? Are we connecting to, like we do in our sacred meditation, do we connect to Mother Earth, to that which we are upon? Do we go outside and take our shoes off and put our feet in the grass and connect to Mother Earth? And that lightens us. That brings that energy through us. That digs into our core beliefs so that we can take a look at them. And if we want to switch some of them around, maybe move some, I don't need this. We get that energy and that vitality and that vibrancy from Mother Earth, from having this lightness from the planet empower us. Also, colorful area rugs are used to define specific areas to inject personality and show off your aesthetic. Live freely, live boldly. Even if you're in the house most of the time, do it freely and boldly. Dance like Mrs. Doubtfire. Don't just clean up the house. Put some music on. Don't just sit there at the computer and do your work during the day. If you don't have to speak to somebody during your work, put some meditative music on. I wouldn't put music that has lyrics to it, that would be distracting, but put some meditative music on. After a while, you won't even hear it. You'll just feel it. And show your God self to everyone. Be authentic, but show your God self. You can show your God self even behind that mask. Because, it's here. It's here. Number 5, paint matte walls with bold accents, but be mindful of paintings, they say. Glossy walls can create glare rather than reflect light. So we want matte surfaces, on the other hand, because they reflect light in every direction. Going for a bold accent wall and a palette of daring hues can energize a room and make it appear brighter. If you cover a wall with paintings or posters, they will absorb the little sunlight streaming into your space rather than reflect it. You know what they're talking about here? You don't need flash to shine. You don't need to, you can dress nice maybe, not be sloppy all the time. I do that. It's so easy to just get up and walk around in pajamas or sweats all day, and there's, of course, nothing wrong with that. And I don't do it every day, but most days I will get dressed. Even if it's something, obviously it's going to be something super casual, but I will get dressed. I will not wear all day either what I slept in or what I was going to work out in. I want to change up. I want to reflect myself. But I don't have to be fancy. I don't have to wear jewelry all the time. I don't need that flash to shine myself. Because as I open my mind and my heart, my authenticity shines on its own. You saw Quincy. Quincy's there, and it's a nice shirt of some sort. But the energy that she has, and I know this in a lot of people, I'm just using her example because you just saw her. The energy she has comes out, that authenticity, that divine urge just shines from her. She doesn't need all kinds of stuff on, tons of makeup on. She just shines herself. Not that any of that is bad or anything, of course not. It's fun. It's enhancing sometimes. I'm wearing this shirt versus maybe something easier to wear, considering I'm just sitting in my house for most of the day. But this is expressing me. Not in a flashy way, just in an authentic way that makes me feel great. All this is to say, our future is unwritten. And some people are feeling, I know that our future is, what is it? Well, I don't know what it is. I know what it is. I know what your future is. Your future is what you decide it to be. We get to decide what to paint the walls in our room and what to paint the walls within our minds and our hearts and our guts. We get to decide where to plant the trees and how to trim them outside. And we get to decide how to plant the trees and the shrubbery in our minds and our hearts and our guts on the inside and how to trim those. We get to know what kind of curtains we're going to use. Are we using these curtains? Are we using these curtains where we're squinting, or these curtains like we're watching a horror film, or are we using wide open curtains that shine in the full light and looking at it and taking responsibility and going, I don't need this in my life anymore. Boom, boom, bye-bye. I am busting through soaring and zooming. We get to put the accents in our lives, whatever that is. This, some jewelry. Using this. Sorry, I'm bumping the microphone. We get to choose those. We get to choose the amount of light we want. Do we want a little less light so we can be a little more contemplative? Then we have that. We go to closing our eyes or a soft focus, and then we can contemplate and meditate and allow Spirit to speak through us more and commune more. We get to decide those things. We get to decide how we're going to experience everything in our lives. We get to choose light. We get to choose love. We get to choose peace. We get to choose grace. We get to choose victory over victimness. We get to choose gratitude because we know the best experiences are coming into our lives right here and right now, no matter the pandemic, no matter the stay-at-home orders, no matter what's going on in our financial life. We get to decide now, not them, not our past. We do. And as we step into that knowing, boy, those ideas are going to start jumping into your lap. Those opportunities are going to start jumping into your lap. I see it all the time. I see it a lot, especially with artists, and I see it with people in the business world who have decided to radically change how they're going to be in the business world. And I'm like amazed sometimes how they change their job. And yeah, they're going out for interviews and all that kind of stuff. But, these are things that I know because I've talked to them, or I've been in counseling, or they've been in counseling with me. I see where their mind goes, how their mind opens, and then these opportunities drop in that they never thought about looking into. Choose life. Because when we choose light, love, light, open our hearts and allow and commune with the divine within us, ideas pop up, imagination soars. We can do that with our room on the outside and with our room on the inside. So join me in doing that. And you know what? Let's brighten up this place. Namaste.